Hi everybody, this is Mr. Nolan, and as promised in another video, all I want to do with you really quickly is to be able to annotate an abstract of a study that we're looking at with our Juncos. And what an abstract is it's basically a quick summary of a research paper that comes at the beginning, not at the end, it comes at the beginning. And the reason why abstracts are really important to be able to read is because if you go into a field where you have to read a bunch of research papers, things like that, it's really, really excellent if you can be able to read an abstract quickly and then move on to another paper. That way, instead of reading through the whole paper and trying to figure out what is this paper supposed to say, you just read this one paragraph summary, this abstract, and the abstract will explain to you what's in the paper. That way you can decide if you want to read more. But abstracts tend to be very difficult to read because there's so much stuff sort of packed into one space. So what we're going to do together right now is I'm going to annotate this abstract with you. And this abstract is actually in your student activity sheets. So if I scroll up here, this is just in lesson 13, right? So this abstract is actually located in lesson 13. So I'll annotate it with you. We'll read it together. Hopefully you can kind of understand what is being said in this abstract. I want you to kind of rate yourself at the end and give kind of a 1 to 5 sort of rating. How much do you understand this? Do you understand it a lot, 5, or do you not even understand at all what this is saying? So let's go ahead and do this together. Let's annotate this, and we will go ahead and figure out what the heck is this abstract saying. So I'm just going to read through this line by line, and we will go ahead and annotate as we go. So let's read. Novel or changing environments expose animals to diverse stressors that likely require coordinated hormonal and behavioral adaptations. So there's 3 terms in here that I think are important. One of them is novel, one is stressors, and one is hormonal. What does hormonal mean? So let me go ahead and annotate that. So novel means new. We saw in previous lessons that novel means new. Hormonal is just referring to chemicals in the body, right? We saw that in our previous video. And then a stressor, it's even got that word stress in it, that just means things that cause stress. That's what a stressor is. So let's continue reading. Predicted adaptations to urban environments include attenuated physiological responses to stressors and bolder exploratory behaviors. And I'm going to stop right there. Attenuated physiological responses. I had to look this up in order to figure out what is this talking about. Attenuated generally seems to refer to genetically related. It has to do with genes. And then physiological responses are just body reactions. So like if you sweat because you're running, that's a physiological response. So attenuated physiological response just means a gene-related body reaction. And let's go ahead and continue here. But few studies to date have evaluated the impact of urban life on co-divergence of these hormonal and behavioral traits in natural systems. So co-divergence means changing in opposite ways. Here, we demonstrate rapid adaptive shifts in both stress physiology and correlated boldness behaviors in a songbird, the dark-eyed junco, following its colonization of a novel urban environment. There's nothing too difficult about that sentence. We compared elevation in corticosterone, cort for short, in response to handling and flight initiation distances in birds from a recently established urban population in San Diego, California, to birds from a nearby wildland population in the species' ancestral montane breeding range. Well, what do we mean by recently established urban population? That's probably the UCSD birds. And then what do we mean by ancestral montane breeding range? Well, that's probably the mountains. That's probably the mountain birds that we're talking about. So let's annotate that too. We also measured court and exploratory behavior in birds raised from early life in a captive common garden study. Well, we know what that is, right? We talked for a couple of videos about what do we mean by a common garden study. We found persistent population differences for both reduced court responses and bolder exploratory behavior in birds from the colonist population, that's talking about UCSD, as well as significant negative covariation between maximum court and exploratory behavior. Covariation in this case just means correlation, that there's a significant negative correlation between high court levels and exploratory behavior. Although early developmental effects cannot be ruled out, These results suggest contemporary adaptive evolution of correlated hormonal and behavioral traits associated with colonization of an urban environment. Well, contemporary adaptive evolution, contemporary just means recent, and adaptive evolution just means there's changes in that population that are affecting the bird's reproduction or survival. So basically, all this is saying is just recent changes to the population. All right, wow. So lots of, marginalia going on here. This is a well annotated abstract. So notice what I did, I went through there one line at a time, and I tried to figure out what was going on in each sentence. If you try to consume something like this all in one big dose, you're probably just going to stare at it and say, I don't even know what it's saying. So it's important to be able to just put the brakes on sometimes and kind of slow down and just read it line by line. Like, pick it apart, dissect it, try to figure out what is it saying. Now that we've done that, we've gone through it basically line by line, trying to figure out what does all this stuff say, I hope that you feel a little bit better about what this is saying. What I suggest that you do at this moment, I could read it along, but I would, I think that it would probably be good for you to go ahead and just read it on your own. I want you to just quietly sit down somewhere, read it aloud, right? That might be helpful. Read it aloud, go through a novel, changing environments, yada yada. And I want you to kind of assess yourself, how much do you understand this abstract? Do you actually get what these researchers are saying in this work? What are they doing? What does their work look like? What have they, concluded? To just take a minute, read through it. I'll erase the board, and then I want to just turn your attention to some questions that I'd really like you to answer after you have done this annotating and you've gone ahead and read this abstract one more time, just on your own pace. Okay, now that I've erased all that, I just want to kind of scroll down, and I want to just, like I said, turn your attention to some questions that I'd like you to respond to in your student activity sheet. So now that you've annotated it and you've read it, what I'd really like you to do is to respond to these questions in the space down here. What is the study trying to figure out? What kinds of measurements were they collecting? Can we tell just based on this what were the scientists actually doing? And then what did you learn that was new or unexpected? And then do you have any new questions that you walk away with? I'm sure you can come up with at least one. What's a question that you walk away with after reading this abstract? So, don't let abstracts scare you and raise your cortisol levels. They're just something that you have to go through one line at a time. It's helpful if you have, sort of a coach like me to kind of go through and help you with that. But abstracts are not really all that daunting as long as you kind of take your time and you go through one line at a time. So I hope that this was helpful in understanding this abstract to this, to this study. And I will see you in future videos. Happy hunting.